My name is Karen Brooks. I'm 65 years old. I'm a retired trauma nurse who spent 3 decades in the emergency rooms of Boston Memorial, saving lives and holding hands through unbearable nights. I thought I had seen everything there was to see in this world: the cruelty, the beauty, the suddenness with which life can be taken away. Yet nothing, not even my years in medicine, prepared me for what was about to happen to me and my daughter. For most of my life, Chloe was my anchor, my only child, my companion, my closest friend. She had a bright, curious mind and a heart that overflowed with kindness. We spoke every day. It was a ritual that gave my days structure after retirement. During her lunch breaks, Chloe would call me. We would talk about everything: office gossip, the latest Netflix series, silly dating stories, or the books stacked on her nightstand. I lived for those conversations. They made me feel less like a retired widow in an empty house and more like a mother, still needed, still loved. Chloe often joked that I spoiled her more as an adult than I ever did as a child. She was probably right. If she hinted that she was craving my lasagna, I would drive into Boston with a pan wrapped in foil, warm and fragrant with garlic, basil, and melted cheese. It was a dish I first made for her when she was 12, and it had become our shared comfort. I would set the table with my best china, the set I usually saved for Christmas. On the mantel above us, photographs of the Cape Cod beach house smiled down, each frame holding memories of summers past. Chloe chasing seagulls, William grilling on the deck before our marriage crumbled, me holding Chloe in a striped towel after teaching her to swim. That house was more than property. It was history, love, sweat, tears. William and I had renovated it with our own hands before Chloe was born. It had survived the storms of marriage and the storms of the Atlantic. And even after William left us, bankrupt, broken, humiliated, that house remained untouchable because it had been placed in a family trust. It was the one asset creditors could never seize. For me, it symbolized endurance. For Chloe, it was the backdrop of childhood. Then came Ryan Miller. Chloe met him at a cafe in Boston, or at least that's the story she told me. She spilled coffee on his expensive shirt, they laughed, exchanged numbers, and began dating soon after. From the way she described him, I could almost see the glow in her eyes over the phone. "Mom, he's different," she told me that first night. "He really gets me." When she finally brought him to meet me, I wanted everything to be perfect. I prepared my famous lasagna, I set the good china, I polished the silverware. The house smelt like garlic and basil, and for a moment, it felt like Christmas in July. When the doorbell rang, Chloe stood there with a man who looked like he had stepped out of a glossy magazine. Tall, blonde, suntanned, his suit perfectly cut. He carried roses in his hand, the expensive kind you don't find at the grocery store. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, smiling with practiced charm, "these roses reminded me of the ones in your yard. Chloe tells me you're quite the gardener." "Thank you, Ryan," I replied, taking the bouquet. "And please call me Karen." He followed me into the dining room, complimenting the house, the photos, the smell of dinner. At the table, he asked thoughtful questions about my career, my years in emergency medicine. He seemed fascinated by my stories, impressed by my endurance. He helped clear the table and even offered to do the dishes. A perfect gentleman. Almost too perfect. But then he noticed the photographs on the mantel. "This beach house in Cape Cod looks incredible," he said, lingering on a picture of Chloe and me standing on the deck. "Beachfront property like that, it must have appreciated tremendously in the last 15 years. A sound investment, really." It was the first time he mentioned the beach house. I thought little of it. After all, who wouldn't admire the property? But when dessert came, my homemade tiramisu, he asked about it again. This time about the property taxes and insurance costs. Later, as Chloe put on her coat, he mentioned it a third time. Each question slid into conversation smoothly, like a man who had rehearsed his lines. Something in my gut shifted that night. But Chloe was glowing, and I told myself not to be paranoid. She deserved happiness, and if this man made her happy, then that was all that mattered. For weeks, Chloe's voice on the phone was brighter than ever. She gushed about Ryan, his intelligence, his business sense, his ability to make her feel seen. She was enchanted. And I wanted so badly to share in that enchantment. But, gradually, I noticed a change. The daily calls became every other day, then twice a week, then once a week. And when she did call, the conversations were rushed, hollow. Gone were the long discussions about her coworkers, my garden, the novels we were reading. Now it was polite updates, shallow exchanges, and then quick goodbyes. "Is everything okay with you and Ryan?" I asked one evening. "Everything's perfect," she said. But there was something in her tone, sharp, rehearsed, unfamiliar. "He's just teaching me about work-life balance. I didn't realize how much time I spent on the phone every day." Teaching her. The words stuck in my throat. My sister, Elizabeth, visited from Chicago that spring, and she noticed the difference instantly. We sat on the porch watching fireflies when she said, "Chloe seems different, more controlled." "Ryan has opinions about everything," I admitted. Her friends, her job, even her relationship with me. Elizabeth gave me a look I recognized all too well. "Sounds familiar." She was right. It did sound familiar, just like William. Charming in the beginning, but slowly, steadily, he bent the world to his will. Until, one day, he vanished, leaving me with a broken marriage, a mountain of debt, and an 8-year-old child to raise alone. I had survived that storm by working double shifts, scrimping every penny, and building a new life from ashes. I told myself Ryan was nothing like William, that this was just me being overprotective. But Elizabeth's warning stayed with me. Men like that don't change. They only get better at hiding who they really are. Weeks later, Chloe updated her Facebook status with a photo of her left hand, an enormous diamond ring sparkling under restaurant lights. The caption read, "He asked, I said yes, can't wait to start forever together." 53 likes, dozens of comments, and not one mention of me, her mother, who found out about her engagement on social media. I called immediately. Chloe's voice was breathless, excited, apologetic. "Oh my God, Mom, I'm so sorry. Ryan surprised me last night and it all happened so fast. We called his parents, it got so late, and I was going to call you this morning, I swear." I forced warmth into my voice. "Congratulations, sweetheart. Tell me everything." For 20 minutes, she gushed about the proposal, the ring, the country club engagement party Ryan's parents were planning. Finally, I asked, "When's the party? Should I plan to drive down Friday night?" There was a pause. "Mom, about that, Ryan's family has very specific traditions. His mother has planned everything, and it's mostly just for his side." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "So, I'm not invited?" "It's not that you're not important, it's just Ryan thinks it's better if we respect his family's way of doing things." Ryan thinks. Ryan decides. Ryan dictates. I hung up later with a polite smile in my voice, but inside I was breaking. My daughter was slipping away from me one decision at a time, and I could already feel the chains Ryan was wrapping around her life. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. After the engagement, things only grew stranger. Chloe, who once called me daily, now called once a week. And when she did, her tone carried something sharp beneath the sweetness, as though she was reciting lines Ryan had whispered into her ear. One evening, she told me with a quiet firmness I had never heard before, "Mom, Ryan thinks I rely on you too much. He says I should learn to solve things with him, not always run to you when I'm stressed." I bit my lip. Talking to your mother when life is overwhelming is not dependence, it's love, it's natural. But I said nothing. Instead, I listened to the sound of my daughter slipping further into his grasp. Elizabeth called again from Chicago. "Karen, you need to keep your eyes open. This man, he's pulling her away from you. I've seen it before." I wanted to argue, but in my heart, I knew she was right. Ryan's shadow was everywhere. Chloe dyed her hair blonde, a color she had never liked before. She traded her casual sweaters for expensive designer clothes. Her social media, once filled with pictures of her and her college friends, was now a showcase of couples dinners and business acquaintances Ryan had introduced her to. It was as though he was rewriting her identity, piece by piece. Then, one spring morning, as I tended to the roses in my garden, I saw the update that broke me. Chloe Brooks has updated her status. I tapped it open. There was a photograph of her hand with a massive diamond, captioned, "He asked, I said yes. Can't wait to start our forever together." Not a word to me, not even a whisper of warning. I called her instantly. She answered, breathless, "Oh my God, Mom, I'm sorry. It just happened last night. Ryan surprised me, then we called his parents and it got late. I was going to call you this morning." I forced my voice steady. "Congratulations, sweetheart. Tell me everything." She told me about the ring, the romantic proposal, the way Ryan's parents immediately took over the engagement party planning at their country club. When I asked if I should plan to drive down for the party, she hesitated. "Mom, Ryan's family has traditions. His mother has already arranged everything. It's mostly his side, just a few close friends. We'll do something special, just us, soon." We never did. The wedding planning unfolded without me. She mentioned venues, photographers, flowers, all in passing, never asking for my input. Whenever I offered help, she told me Ryan's handling most of it or that his mother has connections. I was a spectator in my daughter's life. 3 months before the supposed wedding, I asked about the date. She said, "We're thinking early October, maybe the second weekend. Ryan's researching venues." "That sounds lovely," I replied. "October in New England is beautiful. Have you thought of the beach house?" Her dismissal was immediate. "Oh no, Mom. Ryan wants something more elegant, more sophisticated than a backyard beach wedding." Her words stung. Chloe had once dreamed of marrying at the beach house, barefoot in the sand, fairy lights strung between the dunes. She had whispered those dreams to me as a child, her eyes sparkling with innocence. And now she cast them aside, like they had never mattered. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself her happiness mattered more than my hurt. But then came the phone call that changed everything. "Mom," she said one evening, her voice unusually tense, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be cool about it." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" "It's about the beach house." My grip on the phone tightened. "What about it?" "Well, I always assumed I'd inherit it someday, but Ryan pointed out that puts pressure on our relationship. He feels like he can never truly relax there because it's not ours, it's yours. He thinks it would be better if we found our own special places, our own traditions. He doesn't want to feel like he's under your scrutiny every time we visit." Scrutiny. That word cut deep. I barely saw Ryan once a month, yet he already painted me as some oppressive figure looming over their happiness. "Chloe," I whispered, "that house has been in our family for 15 years. It's where you learn to swim, where we spent every summer." "I know, Mom, and I treasure those memories, but I'm starting a new family now. Ryan needs to feel like we're building something of our own." I ended that conversation with a promise to think about it, but inside I felt ice spreading through my chest. Ryan wasn't just isolating Chloe from me emotionally. He wanted the beach house. He wanted the only piece of property that remained untouchable after William's bankruptcy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen until 3 in the morning, scrolling through Chloe's photos with Ryan, his arm always draped around her shoulders, not supportive, but possessive. His smile always wide, too wide, like a mask he never removed. I looked up his consulting firm, Miller Strategic Advisors. The website was sleek but vague, filled with phrases like exclusive client relationships and high-value solutions. Yet no actual services described. No testimonials, no listed employees. Just Ryan. I checked LinkedIn. Ryan Miller, CEO and founder. Wharton MBA. Previous experience, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey. Impressive. Too impressive. Something about it all felt staged. My instincts as a nurse returned to me. When a patient's vitals looked fine, but their skin tone or breathing suggested otherwise, you investigated further. You didn't wait for the crisis to erupt. The more I looked, the more wrong it felt. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I made a call to an old contact, Jason Cooper, a retired private investigator who had worked with our hospital on insurance fraud cases years ago. He picked up after 2 rings. "Karen Brooks," he said warmly, "it's been a while. How's retirement treating you?" "I need your help," I said to the chase. "It's about my daughter. She's engaged to a man named Ryan Miller. Something isn't right." "What are we looking for?" he asked calmly. "Everything. Background, finances, criminal history, previous relationships. I need to know who he really is." Jason was silent for a moment, then said, "You know this will cost you. Deep checks aren't cheap." "I have savings," I said. "If I'm wrong, I'll happily pay it for peace of mind and attend their wedding with a smile. But if I'm right," I paused, feeling the fire ignite inside me. "If I'm right, it will be worth every penny." Jason agreed to take the case. I gave him Ryan's details, his supposed education, his condo in Boston's Back Bay, the names of his Connecticut parents. Before we hung up, I added one more request. "Jason, look into any connections between Ryan Miller and my ex-husband, William Brooks. I can't explain why, but I feel there might be a link." Jason promised to be discreet. When I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in months. I wasn't powerless anymore. I wasn't just a mother being pushed aside. I was still Karen Brooks, trauma nurse, survivor, protector. And I would not let Ryan Miller take my daughter away from me. 2 weeks passed in silence. I kept my contact with Chloe brief, careful not to raise suspicion. We spoke politely about her work, about the weather, about meaningless things. I didn't ask about wedding plans. I didn't ask about Ryan. I played the part of the respectful mother, giving her space as Ryan had demanded. Inside, though, I was counting the days, waiting for Jason's call. It came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My phone buzzed, and I nearly dropped the teacup in my hand when I saw his name. "I need to see you in person," Jason said without preamble. "Today, if possible." My heart sank. He wouldn't say that unless it was serious. "That bad?" I asked. "Let's just say you were right to be concerned. Can you meet me at Riverside Coffee in an hour?" Riverside Coffee was a small cafe near the library where I worked part-time. Quiet, with secluded booths, perfect for confidential conversations. "I'll be there," I told him. The rain was steady as I drove through town, wipers brushing back and forth like a heartbeat. Inside the cafe, Jason looked just as I remembered him. Tall, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. On the table before him lay a manila folder. "Karen," he said, standing to greet me with a quick hug. "You look well." "Let's skip the pleasantries," I said, sliding into the booth. "What did you find?" He pushed the folder toward me. "Ryan Miller isn't who he claims to be." I opened it, my hands trembling. Inside was a copy of his resume with several items highlighted in yellow. The Wharton MBA? Fake. He enrolled for 1 semester, dropped out, never returned. Goldman Sachs? He worked in their mailroom for 6 months, not as an investment banker. McKinsey? No record of him whatsoever. I flipped through more documents. What about his consulting business? Registered as an LLC 3 years ago, no employees, minimal tax filings, no significant business activity. Essentially, a shell company. It exists to look legitimate, nothing more. My stomach tightened. So what does he actually do for money? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. That's where it gets interesting. He has access to several offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Regular transfers from those accounts fund his lifestyle. Illegal activity? I whispered. Not necessarily, but suspicious.
These accounts were opened in the 1990s, long before Ryan was old enough to manage them. They appear to be family money, but not from the Millers of Connecticut. I frowned. I don't understand. He pulled out another sheet. Because his real name isn't Ryan Miller. It's Ryan Morrison. He changed it legally 6 years ago. The room tilted around me. Then who are James and Olivia Miller, the parents he introduced Chloe to? His eyes darkened. Actors, paid to play the part. They exist, but they're not related to him. He hires them whenever he needs to impress someone. Paid actors? Who does that? Someone running a long con, Jason said grimly. And there's more. Ryan Morrison has been engaged twice before. First to Emma Morgan in 2019, daughter of a wealthy hotel chain owner in Seattle. That engagement ended abruptly when her family hired a private investigator who discovered financial irregularities. The second was Sarah Walsh in 2021. Her family had significant trust funds. Again, the engagement ended when her brothers became suspicious. In both cases, Morrison disappeared overnight. I could barely breathe. A pattern? I whispered. Exactly, Jason confirmed. He targets successful women with family money, isolates them from their families, gains access to finances, and vanishes when the truth threatens to surface. I felt sick. And Chloe? She fits the pattern, Jason said softly. Independent, successful, with family property he's already inquiring about. He's his next target. I stared down at the folder, my vision blurring. All those late-night doubts, the cold weight in my stomach, Elizabeth's warnings, they were all true. But Jason wasn't finished. You asked me to look into any connection between Morrison and your ex-husband, William Brooks. My chest tightened. And? He slid a yellowed newspaper clipping across the table. The headline reads, "Local developer files bankruptcy after partner disappears with funds." Beneath it, a photo of William outside a courthouse looking broken. You know this story, Jason said quietly. I nodded. William was developing a shopping center with a partner. The partner embezzled funds and disappeared. William lost everything. It destroyed him and us. The partner's name was Jonathan Reed, Jason said. My breath caught. Yes, I remember. Jason pulled out another document. Jonathan Reed died in Florida in 1994, but before he died, he transferred roughly $2.3 million into offshore accounts. Those are the same accounts Ryan Morrison has been accessing. The realization struck like a thunderclap. Reed was Ryan's uncle. Jason nodded. And on his deathbed, Reed confessed to a nurse that he had hidden the money away and told his nephew how to access it once he turned 21. I pressed my mouth to my hand. That money legally belonged to William's estate, to Chloe. Exactly, Jason said. Instead of coming forward, he's chosen to marry Chloe so he can legitimize his access to the stolen funds. Once they're married, he can argue that any claims against the money are tied to marital assets. It's twisted, but effective. How much is it worth now? I asked weakly. Approximately $4 million with interest. $4 million. Enough to explain Ryan's obsession with the beach house. Enough to explain every move he made. Jason pulled out a final piece of evidence. A surveillance photo. Ryan standing across the street from Chloe's marketing firm weeks before their supposed accidental coffee shop meeting. He researched her, stalked her, engineered their encounter. None of this has been genuine from the start. I sat frozen. The folder opened before me. My daughter hadn't fallen in love with fate. She had been targeted, hunted, ensnared in a con that had begun long before she spilled coffee on a stranger's shirt. What do we do? I whispered. Jason's eyes were steady. That depends. If you go to Chloe now, are you prepared for her not to believe you? He's spent nearly 2 years isolating her, twisting her perception. If you confront him with nothing but suspicion, she might choose him. The thought was unbearable, but I knew Jason was right. Ryan had already convinced Chloe that my closeness was unhealthy. If I attacked him without undeniable proof, he would spin it as jealousy, as control, as interference. I need more than documents, I said finally. I need irrefutable proof, something Chloe can't deny. That will take time, Jason warned. And if they're planning an October wedding, I'm not sure there's going to be an October wedding anymore, I interrupted. A suspicion was forming in my mind. He knows I'm onto him. The sudden push for boundaries, the talk about the beach house, he's accelerating. He might try to rush Chloe to elope. Jason nodded slowly. It fits the pattern. When the Morgan family started investigating, he tried to convince Emma to elope to Vegas. Then keep digging, I said, standing. Especially into those accounts. I need something concrete, tying them to William's bankruptcy, something Chloe can't argue away. Jason's gaze softened. And in the meantime, I thought about the beach house, the way Ryan's eyes had lingered on those photos during our first dinner, and the way he had mentioned property values 3 times in one evening. In the meantime, I said, I'll give him exactly what he wants and watch what he does with it. As I left the cafe, the rain pelting my umbrella, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The same calm that used to come in the ER when a trauma patient was wheeled in. No time for panic, only action. Ryan Morrison had made one critical mistake. He thought I was just another helpless mother, a woman who would quietly accept being cut out of her daughter's life. But he underestimated me. He didn't know what happens when you corner a woman who has already survived the worst life can throw at her. He didn't know how far a mother will go to protect her child. I wasn't going to confront him yet. I wasn't going to try to convince Chloe of the truth with words she wasn't ready to hear. I was going to set a trap. And Ryan Morrison, with all his arrogance, greed, and lies, was going to walk right into it.
The call I had been dreading came on a Wednesday morning while I was deadheading roses in my garden. The sun was warm on my shoulders, the soil damp under my gloves. Chloe's name flashed across my phone screen, and for one foolish heartbeat, I felt the same old joy, the instinct to hear her laugh, to feel her close. "Hello, sweetheart," I answered brightly. Her voice was flat, mechanical. "Hi, Mom. I just wanted to let you know, Ryan and I got married yesterday." I froze. Yesterday? But I thought the wedding was in October. We decided to do something more intimate. Ryan felt like a big wedding was too much pressure, too commercial. So we found a beautiful spot in Martha's Vineyard and kept it simple. His parents were there, his sister flew in from California, and Jessica was my maid of honor. It was perfect. Perfect. The word stabbed me. Perfect, but without me. No call, no invitation, not even a whisper. I swallowed hard. "Congratulations. I'm sure it was beautiful." She exhaled, relieved. "Thanks, Mom." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and Ryan and I were wondering if you could send us the keys to the beach house. We're thinking of spending our honeymoon there since we didn't have time to plan a real trip." There it was, the real reason for the call. Not to include me in her happiness, not to share her joy, but to ask for the keys. "The beach house?" I repeated slowly. "Yes, Ryan's really excited to see it. I've told him so much about it over the years. He's especially interested in the renovations you did and the way the property value has gone up." Property value. How romantic. "Chloe," I asked quietly, "when you say you got married yesterday, do you mean legally?" "Yes, we got the license last week, ceremony yesterday." "And you didn't think to invite your mother?" There was a pause. "Mom, please don't make this dramatic. It was Ryan's decision to keep it small. And honestly, after everything we talked about with boundaries, I thought you'd understand." Understand. The word echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. She wanted me to understand that I was no longer part of her milestones, that my daughter had married a man who convinced her to shutting out her mother was healthy. But my voice was calm when I answered. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll make sure you get the keys." After I hung up, I sat in the garden for a long time, staring at the roses,
listening to the hum of bees. Inside, patterns formed like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Ryan's pattern. He isolated women, convinced them to cut ties, then gained access to their assets. But Ryan had underestimated me. He thought I would hand him the beach house without resistance. He thought I would quietly accept being excluded. He thought wrong. I called Jason immediately. They got married yesterday, and now they want the keys to the beach house for their honeymoon. Jason whistled low. That was fast. He's accelerating his plan. I need the full report by Friday morning. Everything you've got, especially proof about those offshore accounts. I'll do my best, he promised. I've located the nurse who heard Jonathan Reed's deathbed confession. She remembers him mentioning his nephew and the money. If she signs a statement, that's solid evidence. Perfect, because Friday is when I'm delivering my wedding gift. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a leather portfolio spread before me. I gathered every piece of evidence Jason had uncovered so far. Copies of the fake resume, the name change documents, surveillance photos, old newspaper clippings about William's bankruptcy, and most importantly, the information linking Ryan's accounts to Jonathan Reed. I slipped them all inside, one by one. On top, I placed a handwritten note. Congratulations on your marriage. Every new husband should know about his wife's family history. With love, Karen. I wrapped the portfolio in elegant silver paper, tied it with a white bow. From the outside, it looked like the kind of wedding gift any mother might give. But inside, it was a time bomb. On Friday morning, I drove to Chloe and Ryan's apartment. The streets were quiet, the air sharp with the promise of rain. I set the package gently at their door, rang the bell once, and walked away without looking back. By 2:17 p.m., my phone rang. Chloe's number. But it was Ryan's voice, ragged with fury. "What the hell is wrong with you, you crazy old witch? How dare you send us this garbage?" I set my teacup down carefully. "Hello, Ryan. I take it you opened your wedding gift." "This isn't funny. This is harassment. I'm calling the police." Confused, I said mildly. "What exactly would you report? That your mother-in-law gave you a gift filled with public records?" In the background, I heard Chloe crying. "Ryan, calm down. Let me talk to her." "No, she's insane. She's trying to ruin our marriage before it even starts." I smiled faintly. "Ryan, surely you're not upset by a little family history. I thought you'd appreciate knowing about the connection between your uncle and my late husband." Silence. Then Ryan's voice, low and strained. "You're lying." "I never lie. I'm a nurse. Precision matters. But don't take my word for it. I included contact information for the law firm handling William's estate. They're very interested in your offshore accounts. It seems the money legally belongs to Chloe now." The silence stretched, broken only by Chloe's sobs. I imagined Ryan's face as he realized the walls were closing in, his perfect smile cracking for the first time. "Oh, and Ryan," I added lightly, "the beach house keys are in the portfolio too. Consider them my wedding gift. I'm sure you'll find the view of the ocean inspiring while you explain to Chloe how long you've been lying to her." Then I hung up. The next hours were the longest of my life. I sat on my porch with tea, listening to the sea breeze, waiting. I knew what was happening in that apartment. The shouting, the accusations, the unraveling. My daughter, torn between the man she thought she loved and the mother who had never stopped protecting her. But I also knew something else. Ryan Morrison's house of cards was finally beginning to collapse. And I, Karen Brooks, had just given it the first push.
By evening, the phone rang again. This time it was Chloe's voice, hoarse and broken. "Mom, what did you do?" she whispered. I took a slow breath. "I gave you both a wedding gift, sweetheart. Did you read through it?" "I read enough," she said, her voice trembling. In the background, I could hear Ryan pacing, shouting, his words muffled but furious. "He says it's all lies, that you're jealous, that you're trying to break us apart. What do you think, Chloe? I asked softly. There was a long pause. I don't know. My head is spinning. But did Ryan's uncle really steal money from Dad? Yes, I said gently. $2.3 million. The stress of that loss nearly destroyed your father. He lost everything, his business, his marriage, even his dignity. Jonathan Reed vanished with the money, but before he died, he gave your husband the key to those offshore accounts. Ryan has been living off money that rightfully belongs to you. She sucked in a sharp breath. That's impossible. Ryan has a business. He's a consultant. She cut herself off. But when I think about it, I've never actually seen him work. He's always available, always perfectly dressed, always prepared, but I've never seen him take a real client call. That's because there are no clients, only stolen money. I could hear Ryan's voice growing louder in the background. Hang up, Chloe. Don't listen to her. She's trying to poison you against me. Chloe's voice was a whisper now. Mom, what if you're wrong? I swallowed. Then I will apologize until my last breath. But ask yourself this. If I'm wrong, why is Ryan so angry? Why is he panicking? Wouldn't an innocent man want to clear his family's name? Silence stretched between us, broken only by Ryan's furious shouting. Chloe's breathing quickened, uneven as though she was caught between two realities. Finally, she whispered, I need to see for myself. Then the line went dead. The next day, I barely left the house. Every sound made me jump. Every car passing by set my nerves on edge. Late that afternoon, a knock rattled my door. When I opened it, Chloe stood there. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair tangled as though she hadn't slept. She clutched a manila folder to her chest. Without a word, she stepped inside. Tell me everything, she said, her voice rough. I made coffee, and we sat at the same kitchen table where she had once done her homework as a child. The folder she carried was laid on the table between us. I went through Ryan's things after he stormed out last night, she said quietly. I found his laptop, his desk. He left in such a hurry he didn't lock everything. Mom, there were emails. Dozens of them. She opened the folder and spread out printed pages. They were correspondence between Ryan and Jonathan Reed, emails dating back 2 years. The dates made my stomach clench. They went back to before Chloe's so-called chance encounter with Ryan in that coffee shop. They discussed the inheritance, she said quietly. How the offshore accounts, how Ryan should be patient, and how he needed to marry someone with legitimate access to the Brooks name. Mom, he knew who I was before I ever met him. That coffee spill wasn't fate. It was a setup. Tears blurred my vision. I'm so sorry, Chloe. She shook her head violently. Don't apologize. You tried to warn me. I didn't listen. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in love. She showed me more. Wire transfers, account numbers, mentions of properties Ryan intended to secure once married. The beach house featured prominently. And then the cruelest detail. 2 previous names. Emma Morgan, Sarah Walsh. I called Emma this morning. I tracked her down on social media. She told me everything. The same pattern, Mom. He charmed her, isolated her, tried to get access to her family's accounts. When they caught him, he vanished. She slid her phone across the table, showing me a string of messages. Emma had even connected me to Sarah Walsh, who confirmed the same story. Both women broken, manipulated, used. Chloe's tears spilled over. How could I have been so blind? He didn't love me. He never loved me. I was just a target. I reached across the table, taking her trembling hands in mine. Sweetheart, you're not to blame. Men like Ryan are predators. They don't choose weak women. They choose strong women, independent women, women with something worth stealing. That's why he chose you.
She broke into sobs, collapsing against me like she had when she was a child. I held her, stroking her hair, whispering the same words I used to when nightmares woke her in the night. "I've got you. You're safe. I'm here." When she finally pulled back, her face was pale, but her eyes carried a fire I hadn't seen in months. "Mom," she said fiercely, "I want to destroy him, but I need your help." I nodded. "Tell me what you need." "First, a lawyer, someone who knows financial fraud inside and out. Second, more evidence. Emails are strong, but Ryan is slippery. I need something undeniable. And third," she paused, her jaw set, "a plan. Because he's going to come back. Men like him always do." She was right. Ryan wouldn't give up easily. He would apologize, promise to change, perhaps even claim confusion. He would do anything to regain control of his narrative. But this time, Chloe wasn't going to be his victim. This time, we would be ready. That night, after Chloe left, I sat alone on the porch, staring at the ocean. For the first time in nearly 2 years, I felt the tiniest flicker of hope. My daughter was coming back to me. Not fully, not yet. She still bore the scars of his manipulation, the confusion of betrayal. But she was fighting. She was choosing truth over lies, choosing me over him. And together, we would make sure Ryan Morrison paid for everything he had done. By Monday morning, Chloe was sitting in a lawyer's office with me at her side. The room smelled faintly of leather and coffee, walls lined with legal books that seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds each. Across the desk sat Patricia Winters, a sharp-eyed attorney who had once handled Williams' bankruptcy filings decades ago. "I reviewed the documents your mother provided," Patricia said, tapping the folder Jason had compiled. "Your husband's activities fall into multiple categories of fraud. The offshore accounts alone are damning. And if he's been accessing funds he knew were stolen, that opens him to conspiracy and money laundering charges." Chloe shifted uneasily in her chair. "But he's clever. He'll deny everything. He'll say I knew about the accounts, that I helped him." Patricia leaned forward. "That's why we won't rely on just your testimony. We'll involve the FBI. Financial crimes on this scale, international accounts, multiple victims, they're already on their radar. What you've provided is the missing piece." I watched Chloe process this. She looked pale, but there was determination in her eyes. For months, Ryan had convinced her she was weak, dependent. Now, she was preparing to take him down with the full weight of the law. Patricia picked up the phone and dialed. Within minutes, we were on a conference call with Special Agent Jennifer Lopez, a federal investigator specializing in financial fraud. We've had our eye on Ryan Morrison for a while, but without a cooperating witness, our case was thin. "Ms. Brooks, if you're willing to work with us, you can help us bring him down, for yourself and his other victims." Chloe's voice was steady when she replied, "I'll do whatever it takes." That afternoon, Chloe received the first of many attempts from Ryan. A bouquet of roses appeared at her office, accompanied by a note scrawled in his careful handwriting. "I made a mistake. Please give me a chance to explain. All my love, Ryan." She sent me a photo of the flowers in the trash can. 2 days later, an expensive watch arrived at her condo, the exact model she had once admired in a shop window months before. The note read, "Time is precious. Don't waste hours. Let me fix this." Straight into the trash. Then came the emails, drafted by his attorney. Cold, manipulative lines suggesting Chloe had been complicit in accessing the accounts, that she was turning on Ryan only to secure the money for herself. Patricia explained it during a late-night call. "It's intimidation, nothing more. They're trying to scare you into dropping the charges, but the FBI recording plus the emails you found will prove otherwise." Still, it rattled Chloe. More than once, I found her pacing my porch at midnight, muttering that maybe she wasn't strong enough for this. Each time, I reminded her, predators thrive on fear, and she was stronger than he ever imagined. The most disturbing moment came one Friday evening. Chloe returned home to find her condo door slightly ajar. Inside, nothing was stolen, but her papers were scattered across the floor, the emails from Ryan and Jonathan Reed torn from their folders. On her bedroom mirror, written in lipstick, were 3 words: "Drop the charges." The police took it seriously, installing extra locks and security cameras, but the fear in Chloe's eyes when she showed me the photo twisted my stomach. "I'm not scared," she told me fiercely as we sat on my back porch that night, the summer fireflies flickering in the twilight. "He thinks he can break me. He thinks I'll just fold the way he made Emma and Sarah fold. But he doesn't know me, Mom. Not anymore." I studied her profile in the fading light. She looked so much like William in that moment, stubborn, unyielding, but stronger, tempered by pain and resilience. "He underestimated you," I said softly. She turned to me, fire in her eyes, "just like he underestimated you." Agent Lopez called the next morning. We traced the break-in to a former cellmate of Ryan's released only 2 days ago. He's back in custody and willing to testify that Ryan ordered the intimidation attempt. That adds witness tampering and obstruction to the list of charges. Piece by piece, the case was building. Ryan's empire of lies was crumbling. But the agents wanted more. They want him to incriminate himself, Agent Lopez explained. "We want you, Chloe, to act as if you're reconsidering. Lure him back, wear a wire, we'll be monitoring, get him to admit he knew about the stolen money." Chloe stiffened. "You want me to pretend to forgive him, to let him back in?" "It's dangerous," Patricia agreed, "but it's the fastest way to end this." I reached for Chloe's hand. "Sweetheart, you don't have to do anything you're not ready for." She looked between us, her jaw tightening. "No, I'll do it. He stole my father's legacy. He stole my independence. He tried to steal my relationship with you. If wearing a wire helps take him down, I'll wear 10. The plan was set. Chloe would send Ryan a message, an apology carefully crafted, to stroke his ego. Patricia helped her write it. "I miss you. I think I let Mom get in my head. I want us to start fresh." It worked. Within minutes, Ryan responded, "I miss you too. I'll come home Friday night. We can begin again." The FBI prepared the sting. They wired Chloe's apartment, stationed agents in unmarked cars nearby. On Friday evening, I sat in my living room, clutching my phone like a lifeline, waiting for updates. At 7:43 p.m., a text from Chloe. "He's here." At 8:15 p.m., flowers, wine, apologies, playing the perfect husband. At 9:52 p.m., talking about accessing my savings for a honeymoon deposit. At 9:31 p.m., got him to admit he knew about the offshore accounts. FBI moving in now. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I poured myself a glass of wine and whispered into the quiet room, "It's over." But it wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, the local news blared the headline, "Local man arrested in multi-state financial fraud scheme." Ryan's mugshot glared back at me from the screen. No perfect smile, no expensive suit, just a tired, angry man whose charm had finally run dry. Chloe sat beside me, clutching a cup of tea, her hands trembling. "Mom," she whispered, "I thought I'd feel relief, but right now, all I feel is empty." I wrapped an arm around her. "That's normal, sweetheart. He took so much from you. Relief will come, and when it does, it will be stronger than anything he ever made you feel." She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my daughter back. Not fully healed, but free. And freedom, I knew, was only the beginning. The courthouse was packed on the morning of Ryan's preliminary hearing. News of his arrest had spread quickly. Financial predator, multiple victims, millions in stolen funds. Reporters swarmed the steps, their cameras flashing like lightning as Chloe and I slipped inside through a side entrance, escorted by federal agents. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with tension. Emma Morgan had flown in from Seattle, sitting stiffly in the front row. Sarah Walsh was there too, pale but resolute, her brothers flanking her like bodyguards.
These women had lived Ryan's manipulation before Chloe, and now, together, they were here to watch his empire collapse. Chloe sat between me and Patricia Winters, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I placed mine over hers. "Whatever happens today, sweetheart, remember, you're not alone." She nodded, her jaw set. When the bailiff called for all to rise, a hush swept through the courtroom. Judge Marilyn Hawthorne, a silver-haired woman with steel in her eyes, entered and took her seat. Case number 2025 CR 7845, United States versus Ryan Morrison, formerly known as Ryan Miller, the clerk announced. The side door opened. Ryan entered in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by marshals. His hair was greasy, his face drawn, his once perfect smile nowhere in sight. He looked smaller, somehow, deflated. But his eyes still darted across the room, scanning for control, for weakness. When they landed on Chloe, I saw the flicker of his practiced charm. She didn't flinch. The hearing began with the prosecution laying out the charges: conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. The list seemed endless. The courtroom murmured, but Judge Hawthorne silenced them with one sharp rap of her gavel. Then came the moment we had been waiting for. "Mr. Morrison," the judge said, "your counsel has indicated that you wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty pursuant to an agreement with the prosecution. Is that correct?" Ryan cleared his throat. His voice, though quieter, still carried that smooth rhythm he had once used to charm dinners and lull Chloe into trust. "Yes, Your Honor. You understand that by pleading guilty, you waive your right to a trial by jury, to confront witnesses, and to maintain your innocence." "Yes, Your Honor." The judge adjusted her glasses. "Before I accept this plea, I want to hear, in your own words, the crimes to which you are pleading guilty." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Ryan. He shifted, glanced at his attorney, then began. "I accessed offshore accounts containing funds that I knew were stolen. The accounts were established by my uncle, Jonathan Reed. He told me before his death that the money was ours, that William Brooks had cheated him. But I knew it wasn't true. I knew the funds were stolen." Chloe's hand tightened around mine. Her breath caught, but her gaze never left him. The judge leaned forward. "And did you deliberately target William Brooks's daughter, Chloe Brooks, with the intention of gaining access to her inheritance and assets?" Ryan hesitated. For a moment, I thought he might deny it even now. But then his shoulders slumped. "Yes, Your Honor. I researched her, I engineered our meeting, I pursued her with the intention of eventually gaining control of her finances." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Emma let out a strangled sound. Sarah covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Judge Hawthorne rapped her gavel again. "Silence, please." She fixed Ryan with a penetrating stare. "And what of the other women, Mr. Morrison? Emma Morgan, Sarah Walsh." Ryan's eyes flickered toward them before returning to the judge. "Yes, Your Honor. I employed similar tactics with both. I presented false credentials, isolated them from their families, and attempted to gain access to their assets. When their families uncovered the truth, I ended the engagements and disappeared." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her chin lifted defiantly. Sarah's brothers exchanged a grim nod. The judge's voice was ice. "And are there other victims we don't yet know about?" Ryan hesitated, then sighed. "Yes, 3 others. Jessica Turner in Chicago, Megan Campbell in Los Angeles, and Diana Reyes in Miami. The relationships didn't progress as far, but I targeted them." Gasps echoed through the room. In the back row, a woman raised her hand to her mouth in shock. Diana Reyes, I guess, finally hearing confirmation of what she had long suspected. The judge's face was unreadable.
Mr. Morrison, the prosecution has recommended a sentence of 10 years in federal prison as part of your plea agreement in exchange for your cooperation in identifying all offshore accounts and returning stolen funds. Before I decide, you are required to make a statement of apology to your victims. Do so now. Ryan shifted, his voice flat. I want to apologize to Emma Morgan, Sarah Walsh, and Chloe Brooks. My actions were inexcusable. I manipulated, deceived, and betrayed your trust. I caused emotional and financial harm, and I am deeply sorry. The words were correct, but his tone was empty, like reading lines from a script. Judge Hawthorne saw it too. She removed her glasses, her voice heavy with authority. This court has seen many criminals. Some act out of desperation, others out of greed. But your actions, Mr. Morrison, the deliberate way you targeted women, isolated them, and attempted to strip them of autonomy, represent a cruelty and premeditation that this court finds particularly disturbing. Were it not for your cooperation in recovering the stolen funds, I would impose the maximum penalty allowed by law. The room held its breath. I hereby sentence you to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are permanently barred from handling finances in any professional or personal capacity. You will pay full restitution to all victims, including damages as determined by civil court. Court adjourned. The gavel struck. The marshal stepped forward, escorting Ryan toward the exit. As he passed, his eyes locked on Chloe one final time. For the first time, there was no charm, no confidence, only rage and the faint glimmer of defeat. Chloe didn't look away. Neither did Emma. Neither did Sarah. Together, they faced him down. 3 women who had survived his web of lies, their strength forged in the fire of betrayal. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. Chloe kept her head high, answering none. She walked beside me, silent, until we reached the car. Only then did she whisper, "It's over." I pulled her into my arms. "Yes, sweetheart, it's over." But in my heart, I knew the healing was only beginning. And Ryan Morrison, for all his cunning, had underestimated the one truth he could never escape. Women like Chloe, like Emma, like Sarah, and yes, like me, are far stronger than he ever imagined. The weeks after Ryan's sentencing felt strangely quiet, like the hush after a thunderstorm. For months, his presence had consumed every corner of our lives. His charm, his lies, his manipulations. Now, for the first time in years, there was only silence. Chloe moved back into her old condo. She had almost sold it at Ryan's insistence, but something in her had resisted. "I'm glad I kept it," she called me one morning over coffee. "It feels like reclaiming a piece of myself." Her words were true. Each day, I saw more of the Chloe I remembered. Laughing, thoughtful, determined. She began to call me daily again, not out of dependency, but out of love. She reconnected with old friends Ryan had driven away. She even started reading novels again, leaving stacks of books by her bedside like she used to. One afternoon, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a check made out to Chloe Brooks for $4.3 million, the recovered funds from Jonathan Reed's accounts, her father's stolen legacy. Chloe stared at it for a long time, silent. Finally, she whispered, "This could have changed everything. All those years you worked double shifts, all those times Dad was drowning in debt, this money was just sitting there." I touched her hand. "Your father would be proud you got it back. But it's not just about money, Chloe. It's about justice." She nodded slowly. "I'm not keeping it all. I want to build something from it. Something that will help other women like me, like Emma, like Sarah." That was the first time she said the words The Karen Brooks Foundation.